Well, I'm feeling a little bit like a punching bag today and yesterday, so it will be good to have fellow punching bag Colleen Rowley on the program with me. She's a former FBI agent. She's a whistleblower, and she was one of Time's 2002 Persons of the Year. We're also going to talk about the World Food Prize, about undecided voters. Yes, actually, such still exists, and we're going to have Dan Kelly join us later in the program for an update on all things Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Ed Fallon had Tim over for an audit last month and was amazed at how much energy was going through the roof, the doors, and the windows. So, before the cold winds of winter blow, give Tim a call at 515-802-2801. That's 515-802-2801.
Open Sesame is Des Moines' premier Lebanese cafe. This month, Open Sesame is offering an unbeatable lunch special on Monday and Tuesdays. Mention the Fallon Forum when you order anything on Open Sesame's delicious lunch menu and get the second item for half price. That's right, buy one, get one for half price. Open Sesame's pita wraps, salads, soup, and mouth-watering Mideastern specialties will have you and your dining partner coming back again and again. Open Sesame at 313 East Locust Street in Des Moines' historic East Village.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Brother Truckers Downtown. If you haven't heard it before, then you probably haven't listened to the show or caught one of Central Iowa's best bands. I love me some Brother Trucker. Hey, later in the program, not too much later, about 15 minutes from now, Colleen Rowley will be joining us. She is a fascinating person, a whistleblower, former FBI agent, and 2002's Time Person of the Year. Actually, she was one of three women who got that award back in 2002 for their contribution to democracy as whistleblowers. We could use a few more whistleblowers, and we could also use an honest conversation about truthfulness in politics. I want to talk a little bit about the World Food Prize too, folks. But I got to tell you, it bothers me when people say they want their politicians to be straightforward. They want them to be honest. They want them to tell it as it is. They like straight shooters. And so, I go ahead and shoot straight on the Boswell-Latham race. I mean, as I see it, maybe my opinion's off the wall, fine. But heck, don't shoot the messenger, all right? I mean, just don't shoot the messenger. It would really bother me more than anything. I mean, it was peripheral. It was kind of a one of 5 points. One of my 5 points was that Boswell has demonstrated to me that he lacks political integrity. And I mentioned, I'll tell you the things I didn't mention. I didn't mention how, repeatedly I've heard from people about encounters that he's had with constituents who have said, they're unhappy with him on a vote or an issue, and he's been threatening. I mean, he's just been out of line. I mean, and I'm not making this up. you can hear these stories if the people who tell them to me are willing to talk to you and others. I mean, he's not dealt well with constituents who disagree with him. And even in my campaign, it's typical that when you lose a race, you call your opponent on that night and you congratulate him or her. And I did that. Usually I was on the other end of that. In 7 legislative races, I was on the right side, so I got the call. Although in one case, I didn't get a call from somebody. But yeah, it's a polite thing to do. It's the standard procedure. You call and say, "Hey, congratulations." I did that, and I could not believe how rude Boswell was to me. I mean, nobody likes a sore loser, but gosh, a sore winner, that's even harder to fathom. So I tell the truth about this. I mean, things that most people don't know because maybe they don't have these kind of experiences. But I tell the truth about the $80,000 job he offered me to get out of the race, and I get accused of just trying to create, just kind of slander the guy to create something out of nowhere. I mean, to the point where somebody with Boswell's staff campaign, whatever it is threatening to sue. I mean, go ahead, bring it on. I guess. I know what the truth is. I wouldn't make it up. I've made it a point throughout my political work to call things as I see them. And again, sometimes I do something, that I regret later. Well, okay, maybe I'll regret this, but I don't mind telling you what I think, how I feel about it, and I do feel that it's not possible to beat Boswell. I'm speaking from personal experience. I raised $500,000, still couldn't beat the guy in a primary. Maybe a better candidate could have done that, but I don't see it happening. I see the best way to get this seat into the hands of a congressperson that is truly going to represent the public interest is with a challenge directly to a Republican, opponent. Whether that challenger be a Democrat or a third-party candidate or an independent, at this point, obviously, it's a long shot even as a Democrat. It's a longer shot as a third-party candidate or an independent. But right now, I mean, how often do we have to be just kind of, toyed with? How often do we have to be jerked around and led to believe that we're actually going to get change? We're actually going to get an improvement in what we get as deliverables from our elected officials. How often are we gonna have to vote for somebody we don't believe in because they're not as bad as the other guy? And again, I know that some people say that I'm hypocritical for not supporting Boswell but for supporting Obama. But again, I see a substantial difference, not just in the candidates, but in the job itself. Being one of 435 members of a Congress that is controlled by Republicans and very, very likely, almost certainly to still be controlled by Republicans after the election is very different than being the president of the United States. And again, Obama has done a bunch of things that I'm good with. And in several occasions, Boswell has not supported him on that. He's voted the other way. He's voted with Steve King and Tom Latham. So there's a huge difference both in the personalities involved and in the office we're talking about. So I'm getting short on patience with people that say, yeah, we want people like you, politicians or former politicians or people engaged in the political dialogue. We want you to speak it as you see it. We want you to be straightforward, candid, honest. Tell us what you think, and then you do it. And you get shot. So anyway, I'm kind of fed up with that today, but we're moving on because we got a lot more to talk about. I do want to thank again all those who have all those members of the 47%, the big segment of the population that Mitt Romney thinks are freeloaders, who have the audacity to believe that you deserve food, that you deserve a place to live, that you deserve adequate health care. And as I've said before, I don't think anybody is saying that you deserve it to be handed to you on a platter, that you deserve to be given these things for nothing. No, I think everybody feels, everybody that I know, most people that I know feel that you should contribute to society, that you should work. You should do something to give back to the community that has given to you. You don't get a free lunch. Tom Harkin sums it up very well. Again, if we had more politicians like Tom Harkin, oh gosh, life would be so much better, in my opinion. So Tom Harkin says it this way, government shouldn't be there to give a handout, but a hand up. And then he makes the analogy of a ladder. You got to work. The ladder is there to help people get up. You got to work, though. You don't just ascend. It's not an elevator. It's a ladder. You got to put forth the effort. And if you do, again, nobody wants to spend their entire life climbing up and down a ladder. Some people run into hard times once, twice. Maybe some people have such circumstances that they're constantly or at least repeatedly running into hard times. So let that ladder be there on those occasions, but understand that mostly it's there for people like you and I. Anybody can be in the position where they may need that ladder at some point. But the bottom line is there will still be effort to be exerted. So, when Romney says that people feel they're entitled to things like food, health care, housing, he's implying that we expect it just to be given to us. Again, I don't know anybody like that. Okay, I know a few. But I don't know many, and I don't want to know many, and there aren't many out there. So again, I tip my cap to the 47%ers out there who are the schleps that Romney knows aren't going to support him because they just want it all handed to them on a silver platter. And I'm trying to introduce a 47%er to y'all every day. I've had a couple interesting ones. Try this on. Okay, I know she can't vote. She's my bike. She's not allowed to vote. Maybe someday there will be a movement that grants bikes the right to vote. I'd be all for that personally, but my bike is a hard worker. It's among the 47%. And bike, I'm speaking for you, but you can talk back to me. I mean, what is it like to be out there on the road every day, having to cater to the likes of me? I mean, you don't just sit around the rest of the time. You've got a life. You've got work to do. You're active. You're busy. Tell me what it's like from your point of view as a 47%er.
It's exhausting. Do you know what it's like to forget to eat more than 2 days in a row?
If you've actually had that happen?
Yes.
Oh. And that's because you have a bad memory or what?
It's because I'm so busy. I work so much, and for, just to survive that. Okay, so just in addition to hauling my sorry butt around town, what else do you do? I watch kids, and I work for my family business. Like little tricycles, that sort of thing? Well, sometimes they're tricycles, but you've seen little bikes with training wheels, too. I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes. You really shouldn't discriminate. Okay, and so what else do you do? I work for the bike family business. Okay. We make videos and little bike TV shows. It's cute. And you're in college, too? Yes. And you have a job as well besides coming on my program and hauling me around town? You have other jobs? Those were the three. Okay. Wow. All right, so there you go. 47% of the day, my bike. College, 3 jobs, and hauling me around town. Take that, Mitt Romney. Huh? How's that for a freeloader? Okay, remarkably, there are still people out there who are undecided. I guess it's about, 4%? So Romney and Obama basically fighting over 4% of the electorate. I guess that's enough of a margin to tip the election, but I'd like to. I don't know too many of these undecided voters. I guess I don't run in those circles. But apparently, Saturday Night Live interviewed some of these undecided voters, and I'd like to go to that clip right now and share what they learned with you.
Presidential races provide rich fodder for satire, especially on Saturday Night Live. They were in rare form over the weekend. Nothing is sacred, including the all-important undecided voters.
Before you get our vote, you're going to have to answer some questions. Questions like,
when is the election? How soon do you have to decide?
What are the names of the 2 people running? And be specific.
Who is the president right now? Is he or she running? Because if so, experience is maybe something we should consider.
Very funny indeed. For President Obama, a little campaign advice is...
Oh, and I gotta ask my bike. I mean, you're not among the undecided, are you?
No, I am definitely not among the undecided.
I mean, you're not eligible to vote. You're a dang bike. But if you could vote, you got your mind made up?
Obama.
All right.
If I could vote.
Okay, well, good, because I really would feel it would be hard for me to ride around town knowing that I've got Romney under my derriere. That would be uncomfortable.
I considered writing myself in, but decided for Obama.
All right, good for you. All right, so we got a big dude coming to town. I mean, I'm pretty pleased that we've got this Colleen Rowley coming to town. Colleen is a big dudette, FBI agent, formerly. I hope she's former. I don't think she's going to be spying on us today. If so, Bike, you better hide yourself. I'm pretty sure she's former. She's a whistleblower. She's Times Person of the Year back in 2002. A big deal coming to Des Moines, I think. But even perhaps a bigger deal. Okay, probably a bigger deal. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, United Nations head hog, is coming to Des Moines, relevant to the World Food Prize. He will address the World Food Prize at the Laureate Awards ceremony. That's at the state capitol on October 18th. Okay? And, of course, the World Food Prize is the prize that has come under some criticism, not just lately. I mean, I had trouble with... I'm not I'm not a corporate ag guy. I do not like GMOs. I do not like big ag. I like to see our agriculture diversified, decentralized, and in the hands of millions of family farmers, not a handful of corporate agribusiness leaders. And the World Food Prize has, for the most part, catered to that element of the food structure. In all fairness, though, they do some good things as well, some things that people like me like. And so for that reason, I do have a little bit of, I'm scratching my head a little bit over the protests that are ongoing. I guess there's a protest every Thursday at the World Food Prize headquarters. And big stuff planned when the big gala hits, around the time that the Secretary General of the UN himself is here. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, I think I'm empathetic with the objectives and concerns of the folks involved with those protests, but I think the target may be misplaced. Anyway, beyond that, maybe we can all agree, maybe not all of us, but maybe more of us will agree that the extensive amount of state money going to the World Food Prize is a bad idea. Again, and maybe you disagree with me on this too. Maybe you think that all this money is okay. Personally, I have a real hard time seeing $1 million of taxpayer money from the state of Iowa till going to this event. I do. I just don't think it's right. And to know that I'm not a Johnny-come-lately in this conversation, back in 1993, my first year in the state legislature, I had quite an eye-opening experience. We had a budget throughout the session. We had a budget for education come along. One came along for the Department of Ag and Natural Resources. There was a human services budget. That was the one I was most involved with because I was on the subcommittee working on that budget. There were budget bills for different areas of government and different state agencies. And I believe there were 8 or 9 of them. And I thought we had dealt with all of them. And then at the very last minute, with literally a couple, 3 days before I think it was 2 days before the likely end of session, what happens? We get something called the 10th budget bill. Yeah, the 10th budget bill, also known as the Pork Barrel Express by some, also known as the Christmas Tree Special by others. Basically, it was the bill that anybody who had a special interest in a project wanted to, if they wanted to get it done, they got it in there. And I'm almost certain, if memory serves, that's where the appropriation for the World Food Prize was back in 1993. Now, there had been monies appropriated to the World Food Prize even back into the 1980s, but in 1993, again, if memory serves, it was about $250,000. And I offered an amendment to strike that because I thought, okay, this is not the appropriate role of government. This is a foundation sponsored by one of the wealthiest families in the state, the Ruan family. I mean, I knew John Ruan and admired him and had breakfast with him on several occasions as we discussed our mutual concern about urban sprawl. I liked the guy, but I didn't think a family that rich needed a a contribution from the state. I thought that's something they could pull off. And so I offered an amendment opposing it. Interestingly, I got a bunch of amendments adopted to the bill that day, striking various types of pork. Again, much to the chagrin of some of my Democratic colleagues, but I don't work that way. I don't think government should work that way. I don't think pork is an appropriate thing to be putting into budget bills. So the money for the food prize goes way, way back. Again, this chart in the Des Moines Register only goes back to the year 2000. It goes back to the 1980s. And it had held steady, it looks, for about, 20 years, about $250,000. And then after 2006, it shot up to about $1 million. And they're talking about now getting it over $1 million. Again, I don't think that's appropriate. And especially as we see so much of state government being trimmed back, even as Governor Branstad is doling out again $251 million to one Egyptian fertilizer company, and basically turning a public agency, the Iowa Department of Economic Development, into a private entity that is now operating secretly, and we don't even know about what's going on behind those closed doors until they announce what they've decided to do with our money. I just don't think that's right, and I think it needs to be challenged. So I hope that comes up in the debate on regarding the World Food Prize. Obviously, it already has. The Des Moines Register, to their credit, have put together quite an extensive piece of coverage on it. Hopefully that will continue to be part of the conversation as we move toward the United Nations General Secretary's visit. Again, glad he's coming. I think very highly of him. I think the UN has a very important role to play, not just in global food policy, but certainly in global security issues. Speaking of security, there will be a very prominent person in our community very shortly to talk about the war economy. And very soon, we're going to be having Colleen Rowley on our program here. She again is she's a former FBI agent. She is a whistleblower, and she's a recipient of Times Person of the Year Award in 2002. We're going to take a short break, folks, and when we come back, I hope we can connect to Colleen and have her join our conversation here on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
This is Dr. Holding, the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35, 515-232-8766.
Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Ed Fallon had Tim over for an audit last month and was amazed at how much energy was going through the roof, the doors, and the windows. So, before the cold winds of winter blow, give Tim a call at 515-802-2801. That's 515-802-2801.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. Well, now Proof is open Thursdays and Fridays for supper. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper, Thursdays and Fridays, and also the second Saturday of the month. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home. Or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures, we have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
There is hope. Visit groundwire.net and chat now with a live coach for answers.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Neighbors, folks, and yeah, you probably thought I was drinking water there, but maybe it's something stronger. No, actually, it is water. I was just kidding. Welcome back, folks, and I want to invite Colleen Rowley onto the conversation. Colleen is on the phone with us. She is, I believe, as we speak, traveling to Iowa. Colleen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I'm an Iowa born and bred girl, and I'm on my way back today.
You're from Hampton, is that correct, or New Hampton?
New Hampton, Northeast, right?
Right, and you're coming. You're going to be giving a presentations very soon.
Yes, this evening I'm speaking on blowing the whistle on war, and it's sponsored by the Catholic Peace Ministry. I'm sure there's going to be some like-minded peaceniks in the crowd. It's at 7 p.m. Plymouth Congregational Church, Waveland Hall at 42nd and Ingersoll Avenue.
Right, 7 p.m. tonight. Good. So you're when you're a whistleblower, but before now you worked with the FBI for a while.
Yes, I was a career FBI agent. Actually, I worked in Omaha when I was just young, which covered Iowa. And then I got transferred to New York City later on, worked on mob cases, organized crime, mafia cases. But then in 1990, I became the legal counsel in the Minneapolis FBI. And that's where there was a terrorist suspect in the month before 9/11 that if they would have investigated, our headquarters kind of put there's a whole bunch. I mean, the whistleblowing just doesn't end.
So you were with the FBI for over a decade.
24 years.
24 years.
Yeah, an entire career. The FBI kind of has an early retirement, so I retired in 2004, and I speak out now because, obviously 9/11 was the pretext or the trigger point for this kind of overreaction, fear frenzy that we've now launched all these other wars.
Right.
So I'm going to speak on what we can do, what average citizens can do to kind of get out of this quagmire mess that we're involved in right now.
Okay, so what in 2000, all right, 2001, you were stationed in Minneapolis. You were working with the FBI, and you were doing some kind of surveillance, or you were somehow.
No, I said this in my memo that later went into Time Magazine and stuff, but I really only had a peripheral legal role. I was the legal counsel in the office. We had some really astute FBI agents. One had been a pilot in the Navy. He was steeped in intelligence. They knew this was a terrorist suspect. There's so much here you just don't even. People put their hands over their ears. Once you learn all of this information that was known before 9/11, it's almost mind-boggling.
And this was somebody who was later implicated in the attack?
Yeah, he was actually. His name is Moussaoui, and he was the only real terrorist that was actually tried and convicted for the 9/11 attacks.
Okay.
We're in the right now. There's a couple that have been captured and tortured, waterboarded, put on Guantanamo, and they may start to have a military commission of those others. But so far, Moussaoui is the only one who's actually been tried. And then, of course, on 9/11, this was all known ahead of time. This is what people didn't understand. Everybody thought it was a surprise and stuff. But there was even worse than that. Moussaoui was not allowed. We were not allowed to interview Moussaoui. He knew the other guy who nearly brought down the plane in December, 3 months later. When you know these things, it's just incredible. Again, why you have to be a whistleblower, because these are life and death issues.
So basically, you blew the whistle on government officials who knew that this person was a suspect, that they knew something was possibly going to happen, and they chose not to act. Is that it?
After 9/11, there was a cover-up of all of this information that if it had been acted on, if it actually had been shared, this is the problem. Much of this information now is claimed that that the officials claim they didn't read it. I'll show you tonight. There's memos and stuff in April of 2001 that went to the director of the FBI and his eight assistant directors, and afterwards they claim they never read that memo. So when you know that this information, even if it had just been shared amongst agencies and with the public, it would have prevented 9/11 for sure.
So was this just carelessness, or was this intentionally ignoring information? With the, I mean, did they not want to know what you had brought to their attention for some reason?
I can only opine on that part of it, but my best sense is that it is certainly extremely negligent. Okay, so sometimes people call that gross negligence. There are parts of it that border on recklessness, like when you deliberately can see something foreseeability-wise. Like if you got into a car and you had 10 drinks, alcoholic drinks, well, okay, that's reckless because that's very much foreseeable that you will be impaired.
Sure.
And so some of this actually borders on at least what I know. I know of nothing that actually, for instance, when people say that they think somebody planted a bomb or something like that, premeditated or deliberate.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Do you think does this somehow tie in with the 9/11 truth theory that the whole thing was an inside job?
Well, when you say truth, that's kind of misleading because I don't think the full truth has come out. And in fact, it's dribbled out a week ago.
What dribbled out last week?
Yeah, New York Times had the piece. There's a whole book by Eichenwald who has seen the prior presidential briefings. Now that took over 11 years for that information to get out. So there's no doubt that there's more truth to be had here. But I will say this: I know of nothing myself about. So, for instance, the theory that somebody planted a bomb or that it was a deliberate staging or something like that. I personally have no information that supports those theories.
Okay.
But what I do know about is this unbelievable amount of intelligence that came in, and in some cases, even investigations, for instance, in Minnesota, there were 2 terrorist hijackers that the CIA had been tracking for over a year. So there's all this kind of info, and this was covered up. It definitely was covered up.
Okay, so why? I mean, why? I mean, it sounds like more than just carelessness. It sounds like there was an intent to avoid or ignore information.
That's an easy question. Why was it covered up? Okay. Why did the priests cover up sex abuse? I mean, you can actually watch pretty much all wrongdoing, and of course, sometimes it's even inadvertent. Sometimes it is just negligent. But what happens is when entities and institutions learn of something that's scandalous or that's going to hurt their prestige, they believe it will hurt their goal. There's almost always a cover-up.
Colleen, to me, there's a difference, in the analogy has limitations because a priest would cover up the fact that he did something wrong. In this case, it sounds like officials covered up, that they avoided looking into allegations that could have prevented something wrong from happening, and that's substantially different. So why?
The analogy, you'll have to come tonight.
All right.
The analogy is actually completely square with the priest pedophile, because what happened in that case is there were individual rogue, I would call them rogue priests, but there were quite a number of these, and it was covered up by the hierarchy.
Of course.
And you say, well, why would they cover it up? Because they weren't the ones involved.
No, I understand. I understand why the Catholic Church would cover that up, but I guess I don't understand why public officials, maybe even the president, would ignore, would not take action on a person that you and others in the FBI had identified as a very probable terrorist.
You just mixed. When I said cover-up, the cover-up ensued after 9/11. Okay. So the 9/11 Commission itself was thwarted. The Bush administration refused to cooperate.
Right.
There was 3 inquiries, by the way.
Okay.
The very first inquiry was a Joint Intelligence Committee inquiry, and that's what my memo was written for, and my memo gave rise to an Inspector General investigation, which also actually covered up the cover-up, if you can imagine that. And then the third group was the 9/11 Commission, and they were thwarted. They actually now, all of those commissioners admit that they were, quote-unquote, set up to fail.
Yeah, and I understand, I guess, one theory. I understand why they would want to cover that up. Oops, we really screwed up. We're very embarrassed. We don't want anybody to know what we just did. But why did they not act? What?
It's worse than that. Today, I just an hour ago or 2 hours ago, I just wrote a piece that's on Huffington Post. I blog at certain places, and Huffington Post is one of them. And the title of this is Our New Terrorists, the MEK, M-E-K, Have We Seen This Movie Before? So what happens in the intelligence world, the average citizen really is like overwhelmed by sometimes how covert actions backfire, and they backfire in the worst way. But everybody's familiar with Charlie Wilson's war,
right?
What took place 30 years ago. Well, one of the groups that Charlie Wilson was helping and supporting and funding and arming was Bin Laden's group.
Right.
Bin Laden's group was called the MAK, M-A-K. And now 30 years later, and this is the part that again, why is there a cover-up? Your question. Well, there's a lot of reasons, but this is one of the main reasons. These covert actions often backfire in the worst way.
Right.
Charlie Wilson's war led to 9/11.
Okay.
That's actually what created Bin Laden in some ways.
But I guess
we're repeating that. My piece is that right now we're repeating that same mistake with another group of assassin terrorists in Iran called the MEK.
But let me try to finish this one. I mean, my comment is not really about the cover-up that occurred after 9/11. My question is about
why didn't they act ahead of time?
Yeah. It sounds like you and others working for the FBI had very, very compelling evidence that this guy was a terrorist about to commit a horrific act. Mm-hmm. Why was that not acted upon?
Oh, the agents had 20-some pages, and again, if you come tonight, this is all out there. By the way, this is not this kind of this story or this information has all now been finally kind of dribbled out. And even last year, there was the last piece of this was a piece by Philip Sheenan, who was a New York Times reporter. But in essence, it's kind of complicated. But in essence, the Bush administration, from a top down, had told their officials, like Condi Rice, like Ashcroft, whatever, we don't want to hear about terrorism. So, for instance, Ashcroft, when he was briefed about this in July, he said, I don't want to hear about terrorism. And he put terrorism as his lowest priority.
Why would they not want to hear about terrorism? I mean, the other theory is that they... It's not simplistic. For me to say this in 5 seconds isn't going to work.
Okay. Ashcroft had a reason for making violent crime his number one priority and terrorism his lowest priority in August. His reason was he wanted to reestablish the death penalty. Condi Rice's reason, when she was briefed by Richard Clark, and actually she did react slightly or Tenet, not by Clark, by Tenet, she did react slightly, but her main reason for being very ignorant of this and then later lying about it was that she was focused on Russia. They were trying to seek to reestablish the anti-ballistic missile system, and her whole background was on Russia being the enemy, etc. Now, the Bush and Cheney, there's probably more to this story that we actually don't know. But Bush was briefed. That's what's in the New York Times. He was briefed several times throughout the summer. And the CIA, they said that both the director, Tenet, and Richard Clark had their hair on fire. The information was piling up so massive that Bin Laden was going to attack. The presidential briefing told Bush there's going to be a massive casualties, and they even said it was on going to be a domestic attack.
Okay, so I mean, I guess I'm saying with all that information, I mean, not just from you, but from so many other sources, I mean, why did they not act? And again, I mean, I'm not a 9/11 truther. I'm not sure what to believe on that. But doesn't this just give fuel to the folks who believe the whole thing was an inside job and planned?
Well, there's two different things here. You know, if you again the so-called people who have very concrete conspiracy theories about bombs and things like that. And again, I have no verification. In fact, I've never seen even a smoking gun about any of these things myself, that somebody planted to bring the buildings down. That is very, very different than what the New York Times and even the 9/11 Commission and other very bona fide entities have confirmed, that there was enormous amount